The panel is really popular. That's why we had so many people sign up for this session, because there's so much interest in, for both personal and other reasons, on how can we better care for our Asian elders. Maybe I'll start with Ken Suyama, since you were one of the founders of Umenoki. Tell me about why this came about. Why did the church decide to start Umenoki? This is a very unusual thing, to start a church, start a senior home on the grounds of a Buddhist church.
Yeah, it was, at the time we were looking at it, we did have a piece of land that we're trying to figure out what to do with. It was basically a parking lot. And there are a couple of members that really had a strong affinity toward, we need to do something for our church elders. Kind of along the lines of what you saw in the film, what do you do for end of life? We have church members, but then, okay, what happens towards the end? They go off to a home, they leave the church, they leave their family, they go into a home. So the thought was, well, why don't we build a place so maybe we can continue not only the church experience, but stay close to their family. So that's what kind of drove it. There were a couple of key members that were, looking for something for the aging parents, that said, okay, let's go ahead and do this. And we basically had a funding drive, and we basically got the money to actually build a home on the property right next to the church. So it was an extension of caring for our church members that extended beyond just active members, but then what do you do for parents and families? And we made a conscious decision to try to make it culturally an extension of the Japanese family and church membership. And actually, in the very beginning, it actually worked out pretty well. One of the active things that we decided on when we were building it is whether we make it a licensed facility or not. When you make it a licensed facility, there's lots of regulations that come in, and when you get to the stage of dementia, they actually force you, to have separate facilities, doorway, locking gates. And basically what happens is that a lot of nursing homes, once you become Alzheimer's dementia, you have to move somewhere else or to a different part of the home. And we wanted to avoid that. In other words, once you move in, kind of stay, as long as you need to. So we made the decision more on a family basis that let's not make it a licensed facility. Let's make an extension of what you would try to do in your own home to try to care for your elders. So that's what sort of the impetus was. The challenge was to try and find caregivers in a Japanese, environment that were sensitive also, that not only just the cooking and the food, but also to speak Japanese or be sensitive to the Japanese culture, which is a little different. As you saw in the film, they have different needs, different ideas of how to age gracefully and basically how to pass on. So that was one of the things that we tried to instill from the very beginning. And it was very hard to find the normal caregivers that would do this, because more caregivers, okay, they answer the physical needs, but then you put them in front of a TV or something, and that was about it. Luckily, when we first started this, we came into a program where we have Japanese students that would come over from Japan. And I guess in Japan, there's a little more of an infrastructure to how have younger people care for the elders. So we got on kind of a student exchange program where they would come in and come to the U.S., maybe get an education, go to college, at the same time work at this Umenoki caring for elders, which maybe like a grandparent substitute kind of thing. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, that kind of turned everything on its head, because the students could no longer come over, and then we had to go out and find recruit caregivers who sort of still fit the mold, but with a much limited pool. So now we currently operate on like a part-time basis to find caregivers who are sensitive. We do have a Japanese trained cook and all that, but we have a rotating cohort of not volunteers, but part-time people that are still trying to be culturally sensitive to the Japanese or Asian experience. What's interesting is that although we try to cater to the Japanese, we do have some non-Japanese residents that come in, and they enjoy the experience, and for whatever reason they decide to stay. So it's been somewhat successful. We had maybe at one point half the members were members of the church. Our original vision is that, well, let's just do it for the church members as a priority. Well, I never got to that point. Maybe half, like I said, and right now maybe a third of members are are church members, but they are mainly of Japanese ancestry. And I guess as the generations move on, what it means to be culturally relevant to the Issei of the first generation is not the same as the Nisei and maybe for the generations. So we have to make adjustments as we move forward. Okay, what was important to the Issei of the first generation may not be a big deal to Sansei when they start aging, or Nisei when they start aging. And I think, my uncle's story is a very interesting point, but that's sort of the time frame when we start kicking things off. Parents who were trying to make it go over at home as much as they could, but when it got to be too much, okay, where did they go? Where they could first even understand the language to begin with.
I recall you telling me when you founded Umenoki that there was a little resistance, or there weren't as many, or maybe none of the people from the church actually signed up to be in the first cohort.
Right.
Can you talk about that? Was there a stigma there? Why did that happen?
I think though, it goes back to the part that you try to take care within your own home as much as you can. There was nothing, it was pretty binary. You either stay at home and took care of your parents until the very end, or you sent them off to a nursing home. And to have an option of, well, how about a nursing home that's sort of an extension of the church or the Japanese experience? That was something a little new, and it took a little while for people to get used to the idea. Well, is this really something that would work? And like a lot of parents, like now, resisted. I want to die in my own home. I don't want to go somewhere else. So it got to the point where initially, when we first opened up, we had a waiting list of something like 30 people. Only 3 people actually showed up and signed up at the very beginning. So it was a slow go to finally get, okay, the people that earned it said, okay, this isn't too bad, and the word spread among their families, so it got to be more popular. But you're right, it was a little bit of a cultural resistance to, I don't want to leave my house, I don't want to leave my family.
Right.
Where do I go? What do I do? And like I said, alternative, maybe I'll go somewhere and die. But the whole thing, I think it was a little bit of a cultural shift, because this is the first, not the first, but there's a few Japanese oriented toward, nursing homes that will let you stay the whole experience, not worrying about being shipped off, institutionalized somewhere else. So yeah, it took a while for the idea to take hold, that look, you can care for your family outside.
So there was more acceptance.
Yeah, more acceptance, but it took a while for that, that seed to grow.
Maybe I can ask, since we're talking about cultural factors, ask Professor Matsumoto, about your perspective and some of your work in cultural perspectives, especially in Japanese culture, on end of life, dying, perception of death, and maybe even stigma. Would love to hear about your work in the area.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much for letting me come here. I grew up in Japan, and my mother still in Tokyo, 94, and and also I was looking at this film and hearing your story. I thought, if I get old here, I might go to Umenoki. But it is indeed, my mother still lives at home with my sister, and if I start talking about death at the beginning, it may be strange, but since the end of the film, I had a sister-in-law who is Irish, lived in Canada. She chose to die with assistance, because in Canada you can do that. And I heard after that her body was taken to somewhere, I don't know, and ashes will come back. And we're talking about spirit lives all the time. I was worried that is that going to be really her ash when it comes back? In Japan, you will go to a crematorium and then see what happens. And it's kind of terrifying in some way, but you know that the person or the thing, ashes that would come out for us, is the person we knew. But in America, you don't know. I mean, there may be somebody else's ashes or tree ashes. I don't know. I mean, that sort of scared me. So that shows that some sort of a continuity of spirit. And I've been working on language and age and communication. And I also analyzed language, spoken communication by people with dementia, Alzheimer's, who are Americans who live in, where was it? Danville. And there was a documentary film which chronicled the client's communication. And interesting thing is that people generally think that if you have dementia, you have communication breakdown. You are not the same person anymore. But from that film, or from probably your experience, I think you know that the person is still there. And there's a scholar who passed away, but in Britain, called Tom Kidwood, who talked about personhood. And so the spirit, even, so the Japanese believe in spirit after death. And that means that the person, even with dementia, I mean, of course, that's the person inside, and really continuation of adulthood. And then we heard a story from before the war, during the war, and I think that my takeaway from looking at this, viewing this film, was that the continuity of person, the person within, whatever shape, frame that may be. And I also studied the narratives of people with dementia in Japan. And what you can hear there is, again, the continuation of personhood. And whatever they like, what they can associate with, we heard about Elvis Presley and Ohuro. And we have all discussed, I'm sorry, there must be many doctors here. When is it today? Which day is it? What is, if you subtract 7 from 100, what is it? Well, who is the name of the president now? And all these facts that, sort of highly cognitive facts that we try to ask to people who are getting older, getting dementia, and then decide whether or not they're still with us. I think the most important part isn't that, I guess, for us to continue communication with people. And I just read a news article from Japanese newspaper, I think, saying that since there's so many people dying alone in Japan because they're highly aged society, and there's some people did not have any family members, children, just lived far away, and lots of people are dying alone, and that's a problem. And some municipalities are trying to find a way to take care of those people living alone until, or even after they die, and so that they are not going to be left alone forever, in a sense. And so that's, if there's one request I can make, or wish I have, is that if you have more students, it'll be, I can push my students to do that too. I've been working some issues of aging and communication, and also using haiku and all that. If some students could make more films of Umenoki, it's a wonderful program, I think. It's just a mixture of nursing home and then home, and the mix of all sorts of parts of life. And I think it would be wonderful if somebody could make a documentary of people who really live there. And I think we would understand what kind of wonderful lives that they can lead in this kind of environment.
Fantastic. Well, amazing. We'll try to get some students for you. Maybe hand it over, since you were talking about stories and communication, and Naoko in the film told eloquently stories of her mother and the changes in communication. Any response to what Professor Matsumoto said in terms of communications and is the person there, is the person not there, that perspective? It's very interesting, right? You get different perspectives on that.
I completely agree, and that's why the culturally adapted care is so important, because they may not be able to talk anymore, but they're there So the Japanese food, the culture, the people is still very, very important. And when you see these moments of clarity and what they react to, just the holidays, you know, you see something that symbolizes a holiday, or we would sing a song, then they'll cheer up, right? And I've also volunteered at American senior homes. We went in and played taiko drumming in the American one, and this one Japanese woman just lit up, right? But she was the only Japanese woman in this senior home when we went to play taiko. So I think it's really important because the spirit is there. They are a different person when you meet them, but that's what makes Umenoki and other culturally adapted senior homes important. Like there's Chinese, other cultures do the same thing, and I do believe that they're happier if that's important to them. So my mother was there, but my father moved in 3 years later. He was more extroverted, and he resisted. He got there and he said, "This is great. Someone's doing my laundry, they're cooking for me." And then he told all his friends, and that's kind of what happened, right? People like him went out and said, "You need to move in here. Don't live alone." And then the wait list for many years, we had a wait list.
And tell us a little bit of why do you continue to volunteer?
Because I did all the legal work at the beginning, and it's hard to get another lawyer to volunteer to do that kind of work. It's a little expensive. But no, I also did some of the social things that exist today. We had to invent some holidays that weren't really Japanese. We brought in the Japanese holidays, and the families didn't show up because they were so American. My mother's from Japan, but most people my age, I was 45 when my mother passed at 70. They were really American to the point they didn't celebrate Japanese holidays in America. So we created hybrids. So we had a Christmas party and a Thanksgiving potluck where it was multicultural. You just brought whatever food your loved one loved so that they could have this memory. And then we sang songs, because Alzheimer's patients actually will remember a song after they can't talk. So a lot of them remember the Japanese children's songs. So it's interesting, their children couldn't sing them, but the patient could sing them. And then we sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and things like that for everybody else. So we adapted a lot of the cultural things to both the children, the next generation, and to the seniors who have more closer ties to Japan.
Speaking of cultural care, I invited Kenacito here because he is part of one of the leaders of self-help for the elderly. So of course, there's a large number of Japanese Americans in the Bay Area, but there's also even more Chinese Americans.
Yeah.
And please tell us about self-help for the elderly and what you do there, and also if you have any responses to what's been said today.
Well, first of all, I very respectful for everything you did. Actually, it's very good. But for me, I would say I will more like facing the reality. What the reality is, we're talking about healthcare, caregiver at home. We're talking about the people who've been sick for like so many years. We're talking about we try to give them a place to live, give them the life, give them just like a meal, okay? Give them a shower. I face this problem every day, honestly. Let me introduce myself first. I'm from Self-Help for the Elderly. Actually, I'm running the program called Stop the Hate program, but almost 90% of my clients is individual senior who live by themselves with no family member at all. Okay, now, I'm glad people still bring up the cultural, because yes, nobody can live without the culture, because I'm a Chinese, right? We have so many things, we try to every holiday, we need to have all the celebration, everything. But just imagine if you only live by yourself. If you actually, it's weird, because I'm holding my phone all the time. You know why? Because I have a senior right now. He need to go to the San Francisco's Chinatown to have appointment. I'm still waiting for him to call me back to make sure he's home safe. So that's why I checking all the time. When I see the family, I need to check. Is he still okay? The last time I checked, he's still in the bus in the Bayshore, waiting for the bus to 292 to go back to San Mateo right now. This is my work actually. So I saw a lot of bad things. So I really think, yes, people, they want to live individual, they have nobody to help, they want to find someone to help, but honestly, the government didn't do their work really well. I don't want to say that, but that's true. They don't spend much money, even they spend money, they're doing nothing. Okay, honestly, what we're looking for is more places for the facility, the nursing facility. We don't have anything. We still have a long waiting list for the senior. Even just a senior apartment. We have like so many around this area, right? Or San Mateo County, right? Last time I checked, I helped a couple of people like try to apply. We talked about like 5 years waiting. It's a minimum, okay?
Wow.
And they are 70 something already, okay? I have a client like living with the family, okay? But they have argument with the son and the son-in-law, or whatever it is, okay? So she need to move out. So just give me a call like, what should I do? Like, I have no place to live now. Anything like, just give me the shelter or something? Sorry, nothing. I cannot find anything at all. That's the reality right now. Okay, so we back to the home care. If you want to looking for some home care in this area or San Mateo County, you can go to the website to search, right? Home care, IHSS, in-home support service, right? Well, when you apply online, and then they will have an agent call you back, and then they will kind of seeing like how many situation, what kind of situation you're in, and then they will give you like how many hours they were going to pay, right? But that's about it. You need to find a person that you need to find by yourself to help you, okay? So now, where you can find a person to go all the way to like San Mateo to just take care of you like 2 hours. We talk about $20 minimum. Who's going to do it? It's very difficult to find people to do the home care at all. And then we have people they have a long-time disease. I have a client have a heart disease, have a heart transplant, and have all kinds of stuff going on. She's waiting for the facility. She lives in a senior apartment right now, but waiting facility, but still in waiting for almost like 5 years now. So I understand. I think I see the good thing for the field, honestly. But for me, right, because I see so much stuff like in the real world. Yeah. It's not something like we like to see, but it's happening right now. And by the way, it's nobody tell me. My grandma have Parkinson. My mom have Parkinson. I have been spent my last 40 years to take care of them also. So I kind of understand like this is the reason why I work in this field. I work in social service right now because I have experience really. I have go through everything. Like I live with my mom and my grandparents. I see them like suffering. I try to help. As a Chinese, same thing. They don't want to go outside. They don't want to leave their house. They want the family around them to take care of them. They don't want any people like stranger to take care of them. But I will, as a son, I see them getting weaker and weaker every year, every day. They have all kinds of stuff. I will be more patient, but I swear to God, I have yelled at them before. I am, because I will be frustrated. I will be so frustrated, and then I will feel guilty, and then sometimes I just move out also. I move out and I try to avoid that, but I need to go back again because and then for the last couple of years, my mom need to live in a facility, like she just like, she cannot move. She just sleep there. She cannot even eat. Actually, she need to have 2 feeding, okay? So I kind of understand like at the end of it, we try to bring the quality of life, we try to do the culture, the service, everything. But for us, we just try to have a place to make sure they get taken care of. That's it. If you want to like, I try to see my mom like, she live in Los Gatos actually, at the end of it. Like I live in San Francisco. I go there like almost like 4 times a week. Because I know, like I work in this field, I know. I'm not saying they're not doing a good job, but if I don't go there to check often, you don't know what's happening, right? At least make sure they know, like, wow, that guy will be here all the time, so maybe we need to do something. Like, I didn't say they're not good. They're very good. They're very professional. But as a Chinese, right, we always thinking like, I need to do that check. That's what happened. So I know. I kind of understand. Like, I would be like, honestly, I'm really glad to come here today to talk to everybody to see, but. I really want to improve the service. Maybe you want to make more film about it. Hey, your suggestion is good. Make sure they do the crew over there to see what happened inside the facility. Okay, I see a really good one. I see a really bad one also. Honestly, so I'm glad to be here.
Kenneth, thank you so much for sharing your personal story and your professional story. And I think I'm going to boil it down, maybe oversimplify. There's a lot of inequality here, right? Best case is Umenoki, if you have a family who takes care of you and has resources, although Umenoki sounds like it's actually cheaper in the end than many other alternatives. And then you also have difference in quality of care, and there's a huge diversity of that, and it can be really challenging, which is something that kind of appealed to us. Everybody said good things about Umenoki, and that's a rare thing in senior care. So, Dr. Macias, of course, it's your turn to unpack a lot of what everyone said, and so much Kenneth has said about inequality, your care. I mean, at Stanford as a primary care doctor, you can see, literally a billionaire, and then your next visit will be somebody who is unhoused, which is amazing. The inequality we have here. We'd love to get your perspective, and also if you could add kind of what's the hope for the future.
I'll try to fix it in the next. Thank you for inviting me and letting me watch this wonderful film. I grew up in the house of my Japanese grandmother and grandfather who were interned in Poston, and I thought that was summer camp. That lasted multiple years, which didn't make a lot of sense until I figured that out. I'm sure a lot of people my generation had trouble figuring that out as well. But I think this film and the challenges that this film shows is how hard it is to be a caregiver. And many of us, I think a number of you in this room, are in the sandwich generation of caregivers, in which you're caring for your aging parents as well as your children and maybe even their grandchildren. And how challenging it is to do one of those jobs, and many of you work at the same time. And I think that highlights a lot of the guilt that comes when folks aren't able to care for someone at home. And I think the majority of Americans, as this population ages, want to stay at home, and I think that's pretty clear. And I think if we could support that at home, many people would still want to do that. But the challenge is that we don't actually, as a society, have the resources or invest in the ways to support people to do that at home. I mean, you mentioned IHSS, which is, for those who don't know, is county or state-run Medicaid coverage for caregiving support. But that's only for those with low or no income. And that leaves out the majority of Americans that aren't billionaires or have the ability to pay for caregiving, which, for an IHSS caregiver is $20 an hour. But for most caregivers in this area, if you want to find someone who will be language concordant, show up on time, and be there for the hours that you want to, it's somewhere in $35, $40, $50 an hour, which is cost prohibitive for the majority of Americans, regardless of culture. And so that brings a real big challenge in how we figure out how to care for our aging population. There's been a number of legislative bills to have Medicare pay for caregiving support, but those are usually cut every year. Too much, and the majority, and for folks who are on these have Medicaid or have the ability to have IHSS or long-term care coverage, those folks aren't in Umenoki. Those folks are in a nursing home, and the majority of nursing homes are not language concordant, and they're not culturally concordant. And I think we've all seen, it sounds like, and this film shows and highlights the importance of that language concordance when an older adult is, confused, has dementia, Parkinson's disease. How do we provide that best quality of care? And I don't think we figured out the right way to do that because we haven't put our money where our mouth is as a society. to support that. So write your congressman, figure out how we can support aging caregivers. I want to highlight how amazing a place like Umenoki is, because what I saw in this film, and when I heard, I lived down the street in Union City, is that you know, the majority of folks who are really forced to be institutionalized. That's the reality. No one really wants to do that. That transition of care is one of the hardest things as an older adult. That's giving up their autonomy. It's not very patient-centered, but also is necessary, and it's always necessary because no one does it for fun. It's always necessary, but it doesn't make it easier. It can really affect someone's quality of life. And when someone's institutionalized, or someone is by definition has the disabilities to require being in a nursing home or nursing level care, that means their time on earth is very short. And you know, I think it's this film is powerful, like in understanding like how do we as people, regardless of our cultural background, figure out how to care for older adults, and you know, celebrate their lives when their time is very short. And I think that leaves a lot of questions, and unfortunately, not a lot of answers outside of maybe funding caregiving support. Because I think with proper caregiving, majority of folks can stay at home with some support. You know, a few hours a day goes a long time when giving a respite for a caregiver. And so figuring out how we can fund those agencies to support caregivers is something we should do moving forward.
Thank you for that perspective. It's wonderful. It gives me a little bit of hope. Definitely write your Congress people. I know we're a little bit over because we started late, but maybe we'll do another 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes or so. A lot of caregiving, there's two halves of caregiving. There's sort of the mechanical part, right? Making sure the meds, making sure there's safety. And then there's the other half, which I think most of you mentioned, which is the sort of celebrating somebody, being present. I guess, is there a way we can have both, where kind of the family gets to celebrate the person, and then you have, you know, people who do, or robots or something, technology, we're in Silicon Valley, who does the mechanical part? Is there a hope for that? Is it just about resources? Are there other obstacles?
Yeah, I think I'll just comment a little bit on that. I think what we have as our culture as a whole, as you know, the United States as a whole, as Americans, it's inherently ageist. We do not see older adults or celebrate older adults. You've heard the term silver tsunami, as the number of older adults increases over time. I don't know anyone who's been through a tsunami. That's a good thing. That's inherently ageist, and and it implies that having a lot of older adults is a bad thing. Having a number of older adults is a fantastic thing as a society. Japan is going through that. Most countries are going through that. Most East Asian cultures, the United States as well. And you know, it's a testament to our ability to take good care of patients, provide good social supports, advances in public health and technology. But what we haven't figured out is how do we celebrate that as a culture? How do we support that as well? Sure, yeah, I'd love to have a AI robot that could give me a bath. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I think we're pretty far away from that.
As long as they have heated hands. No cold hands, yeah.
We need something, because I think what the challenge is that we until we figure out that we actually care about older adults and we put our money where our mouth is, we're going to continue to have some of these disparities.
So you mentioned, yeah, we're in an ageist society. Professor Matsumoto, in terms of you're a linguist, one of your many talents is linguistics. Do you see differences in Japan and the US, how we talk about the elderly and aging? I mean, you know, of course, in Asian cultures, we always say that there's respect for the elderly and everything. And I like to believe that, but is that true? Or is there differences, kind of everybody, US and Japan and China, kind of ending up in the same spot? What are your thoughts on the language we use to talk about aging?
Well, so in a culture where older people should be respected, in the sense it's good, people sort of respect older people in language use, behavior, but then there's also expected burden of that. And so I guess probably in America, younger people might talk more about happy, sort of, possibly it is an illusion, but then, family is wonderful, and I have grandparents who are wonderful. And in Japan, you might hear more complaints in a sense. My grandparents are this and that, my old parents are that. And because you can talk about such, sort of more casually about good thing and bad thing of aging. But aging is just there. You can't deny it. You can't sort of say, oh, we are not aging. In Japan, it's amazing when I visit there. There are lots of older people working, whether or not they like it, but so people all over the place. And then so they talk, and then one of the things I noticed is that after the new system came in, that is this insurance system 2000, Japan wasn't really strong insurance kind of country, but after that, there are sort of almost every block, there is a service center for older people. And the people can get PTs and doctors or cleaners and whatever, depending on the level of care you need. You can get them. And then there are also adult day services, as well as nursing homes, but the adult day services people can go to, and they have communication with their peer. In such places, older people gather, and so they talk and do some exercise. But the people also who are caregivers there sort of have respect and good communication. I go there and then observe what's going on from time to time. It's interesting thing is, I think it's important. I realize that both parties, younger and older, or caregivers, or people who are taken care of, need to have possible illusion, but a sort of polite story of being equal. They're both humans and equal human beings, and they talk in that way rather than I take care of you, you have to be taken care of. Have more sort of older person might take the sort of standard being mother to younger caregiver. At home that's easy, but even in nursing homes. And so the conversation would be really not just like I'm weaker and you're stronger. And so the power relationship might be in that sort of people who are healthier have stronger social power in a sense. But older people, if they have higher social status in some way, right, because they're older, so they might sort of balance things out. And then if, this is sort of a dream, but then if each party can sort of understand each other in that way, and then try to help one another communicatively or otherwise, and that will show in conversation too, rather than, so in my study of some haiku sessions that we had, I'm not going to go with it, but then when the younger people and older people are trying to do something together rather than helping, one helps another, they have interesting conversation and they include each other to each other's world and then build up something. But when one party is trying to help too much, and then actually it works as sort of unintentional exclusion. And so that seems to be an important factor among people who have different conditions. And so I noticed that, so that people who might be more able, I should just quote, would try to include themselves to possibly older or weaker, whatever's world, rather than we feel, I include you, the weak people. That kind of attitude seems to be important in communication and language use.
Fantastic. Ken Tsuyama, since you're a member of the church, and you see this intergenerational interplay, both in the church but also in Umenoki. I would love your perspective, especially as if you see any differences across different generations. There's so many generations of Japanese Americans now, about how that interplay between the generations kind of is visible, or how it works.
I think the most interesting thing was that when we first started Umenoki, you had a lot of these students coming over from Japan. There was a natural, I guess, affinity for older people interacting with the young people who were not really their relatives. And the students in Japan really were actively engaged, maybe more so than their own families, in trying to find out more about, the history, that sort of thing. So I thought that was really interesting, that the really old and the old kind of mixed really, well together and kind of fit. Now, the challenge now is that with that student program kind of, gone now with COVID, to try to find caregivers who can basically understand the generational differences between an Issei or first generation that was kind of brought up at home, had the war experience, versus somebody who maybe is more Americanized, so to speak. And they're more used to the American version of what a care home is gonna be like. In many cases, it's a surprise. Expectations are that, oh gee, this is a lot like being at home, which is a surprise to them. Because I think they're told that, okay, if you're going off to institution, we'll come visit you on holidays, but you're on your own, and we're not gonna see each other that much, and interaction is basically handed off to somebody else, to the caregivers. I think the challenge is to try to balance the two, so to speak. Have the younger generation who's more Americanized understand what the older generation, appreciate those generation, like you said. Instead of saying, oh, grandma's losing it, kind of, ship her off, kind of, mentality. There is something to be gained by, keeping interactions with them going. And the challenge is to keep that alive, or that, the transfer between generations. I think what you find is that some of the newer residents are coming from a space where, well, this Japanese tradition is nice, but where's my TV? Kind of thing. And it's a challenge.
Not where's my MTV, where's my TV?
Yeah.
Okay.
MTV will come.
That'll come soon, yes.
Might be 10 years.
It's like my generation.
With my MTV. And the thing is that, sort of balance those expectations. And so far, we found that it's a good way to keep things in a mix, so to speak, and to have different generations interact with each other. But at the same time, we know that we have to change and evolve too, because each of the first generation, second generation experience is not relative, relevant to the people who are coming in now. That it's a lot different way of, okay, what activities you have, that kind of stuff, or if people who are really, like you said, in advanced in decline, what are their, happy moments of memory, so to speak. It's not the same anymore. The one obvious thing is that, songs and music is different. Generations move through music, and,
Right.
and TV, what your parents like is not what you like.
Right.
And your kids are, are different than you. So that's one example how the shifts, seem to happen over time. Before it was Elvis Presley and Sinatra. Now it's a little more rock and roll kind of stuff that, people, kind of, get in their headspace over. So again, it's, we have to understand it, but at the same time, and know that, there's sort of a grounding that happens, and look, we're still basically have, same needs and wants, and, what makes us happy. It's just that the happy place is defined differently across generations, so to speak. And the challenge is to sort of recognize that, and not stuck in a model, okay, this is what care looks like,
Right.
This is what keep you happy, and here's the old movie, and, that's it.
Yeah, you can't have the fixed mindset.
You can't have a fixed
Yeah,
mindset, that's what, you
absolutely.
can't have a fixed mindset. We're just finding out, even when, Umenoki started in 2006, even from then to now, a lot of expectations have changed, and the people, the residents have changed. And so the model worked back then, it doesn't attract a lot, and even the food, Japanese food evolves over time. So,
Right.
The traditional stuff, okay, well, that's nice, where's my chicken teriyaki? So, it's a challenge to keep that, I guess, evolving and, with the
Right.
time, so to speak.
Naoko is a kind of a prototypical member, I guess, of the sandwich generation. What are your thoughts?
Well, because I did the intake for, 7 years of because I did the contract work, so I got to meet all the families that entered Umenoki. And the point is that they all come from a very, very experience. The pattern though is they want to keep their parent at home as long as possible. So, but at the time they present to Umenoki, they're completely fried and they're exhausted and something bad has happened, and then that's when I get them.
Right.
So I just did a lot of counseling over the years of how to deal with your life, right? So the point is everybody is different. And yes, you have to have some money, but several people presented who didn't have the money for Umenoki. So then we helped them find, or I helped them find alternate care. I mean, there's a Medicaid facility, Fuji Towers, in San Jose, Japantown. So if your income is very low, you could go in there, and then it's very inexpensive. So they present to Umenoki, but they don't all come into it. Very, very varied, but the expense here is terrible. I had fantasies like, there's a very easy legal fix. If we would change our immigration law for the guest workers program that they have in Singapore and Hong Kong, and you could bring an Indonesian or Filipino here at a low wage and give them housing, they take care of the old in Hong Kong. And that would be wonderful here. Then everyone could stay in their home a lot longer. But you can't pay $50 an hour for in-home care, because that comes to $300,000 after tax a year. So I've learned a lot, but what I really learned is that everybody's case is different, but there are resources out there. You just have to start really early because there's a wait list.
Yeah. So Kenneth, this goes back to you, is if there's one thing you would hope for that would help the people that you help, what would that be? There's one change you could make. Your congressman says, I'll get one thing accomplished for you, Kenneth. What would that be?
Well, honestly, it's money. Honestly, we are short of money. We try to create a lot of program right now. Actually, we have a lot of program like escort service. Have anybody here like know what the escort service is? It's a free program from our program. Like we send out, we have this driver to drive a senior to go to hospital to see a doctor, and then we'll make sure to take them home also. So it's a round trip. So we have to do that also. Sometimes we take them to the grocery shopping. Sometimes we just have a simple walk. And we have recruit a lot of volunteer for the young volunteer to do the willingness call. It's kind of like give the call for the senior like 1 time a week to talk to them, try to see like how is everything going. Let them know somebody is care about them, because most of my clients is individual, okay? And then we have tried to create, we have in a different center for our organization. We have 13 senior centers in the whole Bay Area. So each of them, they have a different activity. They have a senior lunch also, and then we will have all kinds of special workshop, talk, presentation, activity, event. We try to do a lot of stuff. We try to cooperate with different YMCA, or sometimes maybe the different stroke association. We try to collect with different organizations. We try to bring everything like together, let the people, let the senior know, get them more like information. At the same time, we try to do the Mother's Day and Father's Day, Chinese New Year thing. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a lot of stuff, right? Well, all need money actually. So we need money, we need funding. That's what happened. I didn't say like the government is doing their job actually. Actually the government, like, they try. They did something good, but we still have like pretty far away to the perfect world we're looking for. But we just try to do it like as little as we can. I try to little step as we can. We try to. We are struggle, honestly. All the organization, non-profit especially, we are struggle. But we try our best to bring what can we do for the senior here. So money, I think, is the thing, I guess.
That's an honest answer and probably the most very true. Dr. Macias, can you leave us with advice for people who are caring for their aging parents, Asian or otherwise?
Oh yeah, big task. No, I think we as a culture do celebrate aging in some ways. You see the videos of the 101-year-old lady running the 40-meter sprint, and we love that. We also need to support those who are disabled and who have cognitive impairment. We need to support those who really care for those people. Money is helpful. I think I do think a lot of caregivers are somewhat. I'm tempted not to use the word caregiver burden but it is a burden. It is a challenge. I think there's a lot of caregivers who are doing this in silence and by themselves, and there are a number of resources that are available. As a geriatrician, takes care of primarily folks of older adults and those with dementia and cognitive impairment. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of not-for-profits out there that can support caregivers, and so there's a number of ways to get a hold of these places through the county-run area agency on aging, the Alzheimer's Association. There's a lot of places to look, but unfortunately, it's all really siloed. It's hard to get to. But I think there is help out there, and so for those caregivers, talk to your doctor, talk to the social worker, talk to your county social worker, and because I think there are things that most people don't know about that are available.
We're over time. I'm just going to open it up to one or two more questions from the audience, if there's any. Yep.
I have a question about what you mentioned with the IHSS, and maybe another panelist mentioned with the current market rate for paying for care in the house. How often do people try to get like an IHSS worker at $20 an hour and supplement an additional $20 an hour, and does that work, or are people doing that?
Honestly, based on my experience, I help a couple of people to apply for the IHSS. They even go through the next level for the interview. Like they send the agents just go to visit the home or anything, right? So far it's zero. No, they sometimes they don't even approve. Like they don't approve for the service. Even they approve for the service, they don't have people to find. They cannot find any people.
In my experience, it's usually family members who are already caregiving, so then they get a little bit of monetary benefit from taking care of their family member. Because I fill out the paperwork all the time, and it's usually, well, they're doing it anyway, so they apply and try to get the money for the family. But the family member is going to do it either way, honestly. So.
Well, actually, he's right, but actually they're pretty strict now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have a client like they have family member for the caregiver, right? They have the people to check like almost every 6 months. So my client have a cancer, have a liver problem. Okay, so it's really bad health already. So he have a daughter-in-law at home to take care of him. So actually the people just go to check, right? Ask a lot of questions. Kind of like she only get like 20 hours a week anyway, right? So but the people just like ask all the like. So are you the one who cleaning take a bath for him? Are you do like cooking or whatever? They just make people feel like they don't want to give money. They just want to like try to stop everything, right? So it's very frustrated for some reason, okay? But yeah, that's what happened.
Last question.
This is for you. So places like Umenoki seem to be very rare. Why would you say it is so rare, and what has made Umenoki successful in these 20 years that you've been around? What's maybe the economics of it? Maybe that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I think what initially made it successful in the beginning was it sponsored with the church. I mean, there was a support from the church to get it off the ground and get it going. Like I was mentioning when we first opened up, everybody thought it was a great idea. Okay, who wants to come? Needed 3 residents for about almost 6 months. But I think being associated with the church was a big springboard, so to speak, of keeping the infrastructure going until it could kind of grow itself from the seed we planted. I think having the land available at a church was also a big deal because Bay Area land is extremely expensive, And to try to buy land and build a structure, set something like that up from scratch would be extremely difficult. But, fortunately, the church had vacant property that they, okay, let's develop this and do this. So that was sort of a happy circumstance. And I think what kept it going is the quality of the caregivers that we started out and still we try to maintain. It was first initially focused on being like a Japanese kind of thing. But we found out that, look, cultural overall is very important, Japanese, Chinese, whatever. And that's the thing we sort of honed in on. And that's what sort of made us a little different and set ourselves up from some of the other, in the Union State, there's a lot of options for senior homes and, large institutions. But what set us different is that, look, there's a unique association with some of a spiritual side with the church if you want to. There's a cultural thing with, the Japanese culture. And it's more like an extension of, taking grandpa to another, family's home instead of, okay, you're gonna lock them up in some institution. And I think that's what sort of made it unique and different. I think the economics are tough to replicate without, an existing, land or, support from a church, because the church had a big, fundraising drive to build this. We had the land, but we also had to undergo a major fundraising operation to do this. And that is tough to do on its own, by itself, unless you're a corporation of some kind. So maybe that's what was a unique set of circumstances that allowed it, Umenoki to, take seed and grow.
Well, thank you so much. I want to thank all our panelists for sharing their time today. I want to thank all the attendees for coming. I hope you enjoyed the film, and please let us know, if you like these events and whether you want to attend any in the future. Great, thank you.